Welcome, I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. Today, we'll talk about the astrology of March 2023, and there is a lot to say this month, a lot going on. First off, I wanted to say thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate all of your support. If you would like to become a patron and get access to astrological magical content early and exclusively, you can go to patreon.com/NinaGryphon. At the highest tier, you can also get access to my monthly ebook, Magical Elections, which tells you how and when to make astrological talismans. First, let's do a quick recap of February's astrology. The full moon in Leo of February 5th brought the massive and tragic earthquake in Turkey. The full moon was ruled by the Sun conjunct Saturn, the planet of buildings and structure, and the Earth itself. The Sun and Saturn mutually afflicted one another, and this was enough for a very great tragedy to occur. As predicted, the 2 weeks following this full moon and a couple days prior also brought extremely cold weather in many places worldwide, in many cases setting records for cold. This pattern repeated in the days around the Sun-Saturn conjunction on February 16th. Some of the biggest themes in March are around major and long-term changes. This is a month of big changes, arguably the biggest in 2023. We have one outer planet and two superior planets changing signs, and the changes that this augurs will be proportionally gigantic and will echo into the coming months and years. So Mars, Saturn, and Pluto are all changing signs, and all will push dominoes over. And so the only real question is how far-reaching these changes are going to be. We could say that the entire spring season will be full of dramatic transformations and shifts indicated by these three planets changing signs. Long-established power structures and ideas, projects, even long lives will begin to change. The world will change this year in ways that we haven't seen since 2008, the great financial crash, which is when Pluto last changed signs. If you're interested in more information about Pluto in Aquarius, you can go to patreon.com/NinaGryphon, where I posted a video specifically about this major and long-term sign change. In week 1 of March 1st, Venus conjoins Jupiter at 12 Aries. This is an auspicious connection of the two benefic planets, and it adds diplomacy and détente, a desire for peace and harmony, to a military or militant expedition or project. It's a lucky day in general for taking risks. March 2nd, Mercury conjoins Saturn at 29 Aquarius, and this is Saturn's last significant aspect before changing signs into Pisces. Communications are severe now, and they concern the long term. This combination also brings cold winds and even earthquakes. The same day, right after this aspect, Mercury will enter Pisces. Now, in doing so, Mercury enters his detriment and fall, and we now get a very mystical Mercury steeped in magic and fantasy, de-emphasizing analysis and business sense. We could see discussions and deals about islands, peninsulas, and water now, and we're going to talk a lot more about this as the month goes on. March 5th, we get Saturn's morning rise at 29 Aquarius, so this is Saturn's last hurrah, his glorious reemergence from the sun's rays. This moment is known as phases, or an appearance, and it's a very potent experience for a planet. So old men, powerful people who work behind the scenes, but also the working class and farmers, who are all Saturn people, are all empowered now as they start on a new cycle, re-energized, rejuvenated by their connection with the sun and emerging from the veil of the sun's rays. So now we could see key announcements and revelations pertaining to Saturnian matters, including issues that impact senior citizens. Week 2 of March 7th, we have a lot of events on one day. Mercury makes his morning set at 7 degrees Pisces, so he goes into the sun's beams in preparation for his conjunction with the sun. This is usually the start of hidden discussions, and in this case, because it's in Pisces, the hidden discussions concern Piscean things, water rights, who gets water, about the ocean, right, as well, where boundaries are in the ocean, but also discussions regarding important and strategic islands and peninsulas, but also religion, which is often ruled by Pisces. It's a good time for negotiations behind the scenes in our personal lives as well. The same day, we get a full moon at 16 Virgo. Mercury in Pisces rules this full moon, so those negotiations that pertain to watery places or water itself will be key for the next couple of weeks. Neptune is with the Sun, squaring Mars, promising verbal or commercial conflicts, since it's Mars in Gemini, over the truth over the next couple of weeks. There could be a lot of moisture in the air for the next 2 weeks as well, whether it's snow or hail or rain. Now, again, the same day, March 7th, Saturn enters Pisces. This is the first of this month's major sign changes. When the slowest of the visible planets changing signs, we had better pay attention. Long-standing rules change now, structures change, important people change, and sometimes die as well around this time. Saturn in Pisces indicates that attention and emphasis shifts away from Aquarian matters of infrastructure, the public square, and the public good, and toward matters of faith and religion, water and the sea, islands and peninsulas. Certainly rights to water and boundaries around who gets water are important. Boundaries on the water or on the sea become important. Who controls this part of the sea. Changes to major religions and churches, and also coastal earthquakes often accompany this shift as well. In week 3, March 14th, Mars at 25 Gemini squares Neptune in Pisces. So this augurs both conflict and deception. So we get debates over fact versus fiction now. It's not a good time to go try to discover the truth, because the truth is going to be very elusive, and it's just going to make people very angry. On the mundane side, we're going to see earthquakes, pollution events, and also cloak and dagger kinds of military operations as well. March 16th, Sun and Mercury at 25 Pisces will conjoin Neptune and square Mars in Gemini. So you could say that actually March 16th is the energetic peak of the Mars-Neptune square, even though the Mars-Neptune square was exact a couple days prior. With Sun and Mercury activating the Mars-Neptune square, the conflict expands, and yes, there is the chance for the truth to be found, because the Sun is involved, but it's still going to be at the price of intense warfare and disruption. The same day, March 16th, Venus will enter her own sign, Taurus. This is her domicile, and it's a very sensuous placement where we just want to enjoy the good things in life. It's an excellent opportunity for Venusian astrological talismans, as you can see from this month's magical elections when we have 2 such possible magical elections. The next month or so is a good time to start and pursue Venusian projects, whether romantic or artistic. The next day, March 17th, the Sun and Mercury conjunction becomes exact at 26 Pisces. Now, it's a superior conjunction because Mercury is direct, and it's a new cycle for Mercury. He will now become an occidental planet, walking behind the Sun or the King in terms of the longitude in the zodiac, and it's a more modest role for Mercury, who has been much more prominent up till now. He is now much more discreet than when he is oriental. The very following day, March 18th, Mercury will enter Aries. He now signifies discussions and negotiations about conflict, war, and aggression. The cycle started in late Pisces, so the larger themes of the cycle are still in effect. You've got discussions about water, the fate of important islands or peninsulas, but because Mercury is now in Aries, those discussions take on a more overtly military and conquesting tone. Week 4 of March is extremely active astrologically. March 20th, Venus will conjoin the North Node at 4 Taurus, and this is very strengthening for Venus in Taurus, as the North Node amplifies planets that it conjoins. So we have a very Venusian moment now, an elevation of a female figure, a positive development for women's rights. In any case, it's a great day for Venusian activities. The next day, March 20th, is the Aries ingress, which is the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the Sun's entry into Aries, and the chart for this moment shows potentials for mundane events over the next 12 months. One universal theme is of endings. The moon is in Pisces, approaching a new moon. This moon is ready to call it a day, not in the mood for conflicts, but it approaches a square to Mars in Gemini. So conflict and aggression will need to be dealt with whether we like it or not. Deception and delusion are major players now, more than usual. And we've also got this very powerful Venus conjoining the North Node, suggesting judicial wins for women, if we cast this chart for DC, but also victories for women in foreign countries. The next day, March 21st, we get a new moon at 0 degrees Aries. So this starts a new cycle in more ways than one, since it's happening in the first degree of the first sign. Mars in Gemini is the ruler of the lunation and squares Neptune. So the next 2 weeks start a new phase, perhaps in a long-standing conflict, one that is rife with deception and misdirection. Mars is about to enter the sign of its fall in this new moon, suggesting that being an aggressor and going on the offense at this time is very tempting but ultimately doomed. March 23rd, Pluto enters Aquarius. So this is the second of the major 3 sign changes this month. There's a whole separate video about this on my Patreon with more details if you want it. Some of the most profound changes we're going to see this year and actually the next 20 years are linked to this change. As with Saturn's change of sign, Pluto entering Aquarius brings in a new era of transformations and profound shifts in really all of society, but especially in technology, inventions, and science. There are going to be major shifts in weather and climate, as well as technologies associated with the weather and climate. We are going to see more respiratory disease epidemics since they are associated with the element of air, but also new forms of social organization, politics, and government. My prediction is that social media platforms and the ecosystem of online communication will undergo a major transformation in the next couple of years. The current constellation of companies commanding online communication and advertising will have to adapt or die in this new environment, and many of the formerly major companies that ruled this area are going to become much less significant, whereas new players will come in as well. Pluto is in Aquarius until June 11th of this year, and then for 20 years, starting in January 2024. But even though it's in Aquarius for just 3 months in 23, it will kick off major changes from which there is no turning back. March 25th is our 3rd major sign change, Mars entering Cancer. Generally, those people and movements associated with Mars or that have martial values of disruption, separation, aggression will have a difficult time now experiencing a fall from grace or a fall from power. We could see criminal proceedings against major figures, something often associated with planets in fall specifically. These major figures could be Marsy politicians, police officers, military figures, people of Mars, in other words. The same day, March 25th, Mercury has his evening rise at 13 Aries. So Mercury's phasis, or appearance from the sun's rays, is a revelation of new campaigns of aggression, but also a revelation of the weakness of a campaign of aggression. Mercury is still Occidental, so he's a little more discreet and secretive, but he is in Aries. So this preoccupation is with battle and with conquest. Week 5, March 27th, Mercury conjoins Jupiter at 18 Aries. So this is a decision to make business deals, hostile takeovers of companies, but especially the business of weapons and armaments. The deal may not be made or finalized now, but just the decision to proceed. An important legal case could be in the news now as well. March 29th, we get Jupiter's evening set at 18 Aries. So Jupiter enters the sun's beams. He's going to be ready for his annual recharging by the sun, and he'll be invisible for a few weeks backstage. Jovial matters are going to be hidden, and they will undergo this purging or clarification until Jupiter emerges from the sun's rays as an occidental planet. Big financial deals particularly will go underground now. March 30th, Mars at 2 Cancer trines Saturn in Pisces. This is a harmonious meeting of the 2 malefic planets, but neither is strong enough to offer the other much help. Mars in Cancer is in serious trouble here and reaches out to Saturn for help because of the trine, but in vain. There is not much that Saturn can do for Mars right now. The same day, March 30th, Venus will conjoin Uranus at 16 Taurus. Peaceable Venus in Taurus asserts her power and might pretty dramatically now with shock value. This could have something to do with women's rights in the mundane sphere. It may have an impact on Taurian countries who have been struggling to give women their human rights, such as Iran. So as you can see, it's very difficult to overstate the importance of March, which commences a whole new era, and the echoes that start in this month will be felt at least through the entire spring season this year, and really while Pluto remains in Aquarius, but really beyond as well. If you haven't yet seen my whole year 2023 forecast video to get the larger picture, check it out. And of course, you can subscribe to the Nina Gryphon channel on YouTube to get notified when videos get made public. Thanks for watching. I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.